Everybody, welcome back to Change Your Perspective, Change Your Awareness, Change Your Life. Dr. Michelina AF here, hashtag that felon doctor. And if I sound under the weather and sniffly, it's because I am, so I apologize for that. But I will try to be as minimally distracting as possible, even though I know sometimes it's hard when you're like touching your face and all this stuff. Anyway, so let's talk about our final conflict, which is person versus technology. If you look around, you know, what you're watching this on, technology has advanced massively in the last 30 years. I'm 33. The world looks very different now at 33 than it did when I was 3. Right? Our technology has just gained so much traction and momentum. So we've had a lot of technological advances, even in the last 100 years, right? It's 2022. The Model T Ford came out in 1920, right? It's only been 100 years and we already have flying car prototypes. There's a lot that goes on as far as technological advancements are concerned. And I think to some degree, because technology is always progressing, we will always have a self-first technology problem. It looks different depending on who it is, where it is, what it is, but let me kind of go through it and we'll talk more about it, where it shows up in your life and where it doesn't. So self-first technology, kind of textbook definition, is when technology outpaces society in such a way that it becomes harmful to society. That was a very, very big consideration and concern in the literature in the 1950s, right? They were super dystopian, Ray Bradbury, right? Talking about what happens when technology gets too smart and we get too dumb. That concern and fear is actually kind of playing out in reality right now. Our tech is very smart and it makes us very dependent on it. I won't say it makes us very dumb, but I will say it makes us very dependent, which can make us very dumb. And so we all have a self-first technology problem in that we all use technology and we're dependent on it at this point. So where does it stop and where do we begin and where do we end and it begins, right? That's a very tricky thing to figure out now because we have cars. If the power grid goes down, we're not surviving it. Not many of us are going to be able to do that. So we all have a self versus technology problem, whether we realize it or not. And with the self versus technology, what it looks like a little bit now, I think, is that we no longer function as the gatekeepers in our lives because we allow our phones to come in and gatekeep for us. So at any time, in any way, people have access to us in a way that's very invasive. And if you don't guard your tech, you're giving people access to your time, your energy, and your attention, which are 3 out of 4 resources that you would be leaking. If you're subscribed to something like OnlyFans or YouTube or even paying your bills online, you're probably leaking money. I can't even begin to talk about how many of us have subscriptions that just come out of our bank accounts because it was click, 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 click. We do not safeguard our technology now, or rather safeguard ourselves from our technology, which anything that is tech related is going to be working to take your money. They're going to be working to take your time and energy and attention. And so we all have a tech problem now to some degree because we're heavily reliant on our tech. The kind of old concern was things like artificial intelligence, right? There are a lot of movies out about AI getting too smart, even voice things, falling in love, operating systems getting too smart. There's the one with Joaquin Phoenix. There's another one with Adam Devine, where it talks about the operating system falling in love and all this weird kind of giving human emotion to operating systems and things. So there's a lot out there as far as what are we doing with our tech? And I think I would say everybody has a self versus tech problem because we're all slowly becoming addicted to it. There's a lot of research on it. There's a lot of studies on it. And so it's rewiring our brains in a way that is not productive. And it's starting younger and younger. So there's that. There's also tech becomes its own portal to all the other issues that I've already mentioned. So if you're on your phone and you're getting bullied, you're getting cyberbullied, not only do you have a self versus tech problem, you also have a self versus society problem that are now married in a different way than if you went to school and got bullied. And I say that, I say that because there are no safe places anymore. Technically, your home is no longer safe when the problems from the outside world can come into it. And that is a tech issue completely. Like our TVs, our Alexas. I thought she was going to talk to me. She usually does. Which again is its own, right? So that's its own problem. Our phones, our laptops, it's like not only do we have no safe spaces anymore, but we also have a harder time implementing work-life balance and work-life boundaries. When I was doing my research about this work-life balance issue and COVID, I have a whole section on it in my dissertation. I was talking about how, there's no way to physically separate yourself from your work when you're working from home. Even for like me, I live by myself. So I'll do one part of my job in one room, and I'll do another part of my job in another room, and I'll do another part of my job in another room. When I lived in one room, I was like, I can't show up to work where I sleep. That was a very hard thing. Excuse me. Because we have these, not all of us, I guess, but we have these sort of expectations and parameters around, okay, you go to school and you learn, you go to work and you work. And then when it all collapses, we do not gatekeep well. We do not put up boundaries well. We do not put up borders well. 1 second, I need to pop off. Give me a sec. Guys, I just had a coughing fit. And unlike when you teach in a classroom, you can stop and then come back. I, unlike most people, film everything straight through and pretty much the first time. Like for me, I look at this like I'm in a classroom teaching. So it's all straight off the cuff, just coming to you in that vein. So yeah, back to tech. Back to the fact that we're not good gatekeepers in our lives. We're really not. We don't gatekeep ourselves well. And then when you throw in the technological component and the fact that it's like a dopamine hit, I believe it's a dopamine hit, we're setting ourselves up. Look, tech coming through right now as I'm trying to talk to you guys. It's just we set ourselves up to have a very difficult time of things. And so the self versus tech problem, I would say everybody has, just like I think everybody has a self versus self problem. Of all of the 8, those 2 are almost impossible to get away from in this time and space. Because we are all our own worst enemies, self versus self, and we all have tech to some degree. And that looks different for every generation. Like what my mom struggles with tech and what I struggle with tech, and then like what my niece will struggle with are 3 different things. Like my mom, some of the issues with tech is that like she wasn't raised with it and she has to learn these new systems and things. Not lying, a couple years back, she was literally in dire need of 911 assistance and like couldn't figure out her phone to the point where like if she didn't have a house phone, she would not be here. Like that kind of stuff. And that's what a lot of older people deal with. My mom's not even that old. For me, something I'm dealing with more is like limiting time, using tech to work versus using tech for life, who can and can't access me on that kind of platform. There's also the other tech issue of like your reputation online. Right? I'm always dealing with that. I mean, you Google my name and it's all this stuff and half of it's true and most of it's not. It's clickbait, but it doesn't matter. And so at the end of the day, like your tech sort of footprint is a very real thing that people in my generation do have. And you see this a lot where it's like, you'll see like memes. It's like something about Facebook, something about being on Facebook. And it's like, I didn't know then that every party I ever went to was going to be available for my employer to see 10 years later. But like, it kind of is. And like, we didn't know. So self versus tech, I want to bring awareness around that. And there's a lot of awareness around it already, I think. But it's just such a multifaceted problem. I'm going to say one last thing about I guess it's self versus tech, but it's also like relationship based. And it's like so many marriages are ending because of emotional relationships over text or over tech. Like even myself, all of the trouble I got into was because we had tech. Like if I didn't have a cell phone, it's not the issue, you know? If we didn't have Snapchat, not the issue. And so things that people get in trouble for now, that people get jailed for now, 20 years ago, it wasn't even a thing. Like that just wasn't going to happen. And so there's also really great things that happen with tech. Don't get me wrong. You know, a lot of, you can find people, you can call people out in ways that are effective. Like there's so many, you know, there is connection. There's a lot of things that are good about it. I'm not saying there's not. It expedites things. Again, technology doesn't necessarily have to be social media. You know, it can be your car is tech, your washer machine is tech. But at the end of the day, our relationship with technology is very complicated. And our human interaction over technology is also very complicated. And so at the end of the, I guess, at the end of the day, right, it's worthwhile to examine it and put boundaries and procedures in place that it doesn't overcome you or anybody. It doesn't interfere with marriages. It doesn't interfere with all the things that it can interfere with if we're not careful, right? Like all things, best in moderation, even though that's hard to do now because everything is available online. It's important to try to regulate it. And you can't do that until you become aware of it, right? Awareness, action, regulation. So first you have to become aware of whatever issues you have, if you have any. And that's why we're here, right? So take a second to think about, where are you losing your power? Where are you losing your control where tech is concerned? That's super, super, super important. And I'm going to hop off because I'm going to have another coughing fit. So if you guys like what you're seeing here, like, subscribe, comment, grow the channel, and I will see you guys in the next video.